Item agenda number 5, applications for permission for development. Could I ask Mr. Mead, please, to give a brief introduction of the relevant items on today's agenda?
Diolch, Chair. Thank you very much. Members of the public, good morning to everybody. Just to check that everyone has got the relevant sheets in front of them this morning. The most important sheet for everyone is the blue sheet. If people have got the blue sheet, that will tell them the running order of the items on the agenda today. Items that contain public speaking are brought forward to the start of the meeting, so the running order is in the boxes there for you on the blue sheet, and with additional late information contained therein. We will stop and pause at each item that's got information on the blue sheet to enable members and members of the public to keep up to date with the information on there. We also have a yellow sheet as well, which is pertaining to a particular item on the agenda. We will talk you through that as well when we get to that particular item. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mead. For the first application, which is the cycle track, I will ask the Vice Chair if you come up and take this application, please. And the reason is that I'm the ward member and I've been involved from the word go on this application. So I feel happier if the Vice Chair will take the lead.
Chair, ready? Do you want your those?
Good morning. Agenda item 5, please, which is St David's Church, St David's Lane and Brookhouse Road, Denby. Construction of a multi-user active travel route. Agenda item 01/2014/0705 (F). We have 2 speakers in relation to this item, and I'm going to ask Mr. Kevin Ringer to come along first, please. Good morning, Mr. Ringer. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good morning. I am one of the... As residents, we fear an increase in crime and antisocial behaviour. We cite evidence from the nearest similar route at Prestatyn, where it has been necessary to install CCTV, street lighting and alcohol bans. But would this happen in Denby? It already has. CCTV and youth dispersal orders already exist in Lower Park. As residents, we have regularly been disturbed by antisocial behaviour, which also occurs at Ystrad. Numerous complaints have been made to the council and police. With antisocial behaviour occurring near both ends of the route, there is no doubt it will become a rat run, disturbing residents and vulnerable route users. We residents have a right to the peaceful enjoyment of our homes. We object to the visual impact of the route. By my home, it will be 10 metres wide, fence to fence. The vast majority of the route is green barrier in the LDP. The applicant held a public consultation. The route is not one of the routes consulted on. The plans state Townsend to Pentreth Llanrhider, but it goes to neither. It must be considered on its own merits and not part of a wider scheme. It can go no further. The route does not link communities or other cycle routes and duplicates existing footpaths. It goes from nowhere to nowhere, leaving users on Brookhouse Road. The applicant has admitted to me in writing that the council have received complaints about the safety of Brookhouse Road, the very place where the route will deposit users. It is even more dangerous at Cow Lane, where the only legal access is a blind corner from Park Street, another fast yet narrow road. The road crossings and junctions at St David's Lane and Ystrad Road are all on blind corners or sharp bends or near the brow of a hill. Even the plans admit that visibility is inadequate. This route is supposed to be fit for unaccompanied children. The safety audit does not certify the route as safe. Route users are unsegregated, so cyclists share the same track with wheelchairs and dogs. One section is less than a third of the width of government recommendations and is one of several sections also shared with road vehicles. Madness. No wonder Denbigh Town Council has voted against this route 3 times, most recently 7-1 against. To use Denbigh Town Council's words, it is an accident waiting to happen. We strongly object to the route going through Denbigh Town Cemetery, requiring the construction of an access ramp, which will be a mere 2 foot from the nearest grave. This is a place where people go for peace and quiet and to reflect on their loved ones who have passed away. Please give the cemetery visitors some respect and leave it alone. This route is not wanted by Denbigh residents in general. Letters of objection from Denbigh residents significantly outnumber those in support. We support cycling, but not this insensitive, dangerous, nowhere to nowhere route that is not wanted by Denbigh residents or town council, costs £500,000 of public money. We implore you to reject it. Thank you. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Mr. Ringer. We have our second speaker, Mr. Clwyd Wynne, please. Good morning, Mr. Wynne. We have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. When I was young, we were able to cycle in the roads by our houses, and even up to the Denbigh Moors when I was 9 and 10 years of age. But now there is no road safe enough for children, or adults for that matter, to cycle. Roads are dominated by cars, lorries and buses. Parents and grandparents have to resort to using car parks on a Sunday and the Old Quicks area to take children to cycle. The proposed path is multi-use and aimed at walkers, runners, wheelchair users, pushchairs, as well as cyclists. It will also be for all age groups, from children to the elderly. There is little opportunity for the more vulnerable to be able to experience activity and exercise in open countryside, traffic and relatively pollution-free. The only traffic-free footpath in Denbigh available to the less able and wheelchair users and pushchairs, not cycles, is Mount Wood, which has its limitations, but we at Denbigh Community Conservation Volunteers are proud to have helped to create this, despite a small number of local objectors, as it is so popular with all different types of users. It is unfair that Denbigh is the only town in Denbighshire that does not have this type of amenity. The people of Denbigh deserve the same amenities as the other towns in North Wales. There is in fact a duty on local authorities to provide such under the Active Travel Act. We should also be providing opportunities for exercise to counteract the obesity epidemic and improve well-being. It is known that people who start being active as children tend to carry on into adulthood. It needs to be accessible to all Denbigh people, and especially Upper Denbigh, which has been an Objective 1 area for several years, so access from St David's will be convenient for them. The initial consultation, in which there were over 700 responses, 80% of those who responded wanted a traffic-free route, which is known to have a higher usage. The point about it passing close to the cemetery and encouraging antisocial behaviour is, I think, quite offensive, implying that the Denbigh people are not able to behave in an appropriate manner. There is a minority in every community who behaves in this way, but I don't know of any evidence that these paths encourage antisocial behaviour. I believe that there is a path adjacent to Rivlin Cemetery that has not experienced any antisocial behaviour, and there are paths through other cemeteries in the UK. I hope we will eventually have a path from the North Wales coast through to Ruthin and maybe as far as Corwin and Llangollen, but this section is needed first because the path bypassing the town would be of little value to those living at the top of town. A good and caring community is measured by its treatment of the most vulnerable, by providing inclusive facilities in which they can participate in similar activities to so-called able-bodied people. We are showing that we are concerned for the health and well-being of all our residents. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wynne. You'll notice there's quite a bit of information, members, on the blue sheet. So I'll give you a few moments to go through that before bringing the officers in. Okay, members. We've got two local members, Councillor Ray Bartley and Councillor Richard Davis. I'm going to ask Councillor Bartley to come in first, please. Oh, I beg your pardon. Can we go to the officers first? Would you mind? Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, because we've got another officer here as well I wanted to introduce to you before we went into the debate, and also just to clarify as well that there is an additional Denby member relative to this particular scheme, which is Councillor Gwyneth Kensler there. Apologies that her name was not put on the blue sheet in relation to that particular item. We have already grovelled and apologise to Councillor Kensler. I don't know whether it's been accepted yet. Just a couple of matters. Obviously, we pointed out to you before that the yellow sheet, and it does pertain to this particular item that you've got, it does give a bit more information in relation to the proposed route, this active travel route, and goes into a bit more detail on the plan. It's probably opportune for me to now mention my colleague to the right here, who's Mike Jones from our highways section. He's here today to answer any technical questions that members may have around the issues pertaining to this route, specifically obviously in relation to highway safety matters. I think it's just also important to point out and just to clarify for members before we go into the debate as well, that the local planning authority obviously are duty bound to deal with planning applications that are submitted. We're duty bound to consult on the information that's supplied with those planning applications, and we have consulted on the proposed route as submitted as part of this planning application. There was pre-application consultation with the community on this, and obviously departments of the council and developers do have the right to go and consult with the community before they put an application in. But I just wanted to clarify that when the application came in, it is this route that we have consulted on through the planning process, and it's the material planning considerations that you will be determining as part of your debate today. Thank you, Chair.
Does Mike want to come in now? You're going to hang on for your question. You're going to hang on for your question. Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, regarding what Paul has just said now, that the route which was put out for consultation in March 2013 is little resemblance to what is voted for by the public. The route was changed following objection by the Denby High School to the present Denby High School to the present application. But the residents of the areas in Davids Lane, Park Street and neighbouring areas were not consulted on the new proposed route by the Highways Department. There are material planning issues and non-material planning issues in this application, which I feel that they go hand in glove at times, and it's very difficult to separate them. However, I fully support, incidentally, a cycle path and everything that goes with improving one's health, and so does a majority of people in the gallery here today. But what we are against is the proposed new route. The name of the function has changed many times. Firstly, it was the Vale of Clwyd cycle path from Rhyl to Ruthin, but now it has been called the multi-user active travel route, which is approximately 3/4 of a mile long, but I call it the road from nowhere to nowhere. The ownership of the land on this route is a big issue. Let us start at the approach roads to the start of the proposed route. That is all roads with highway concerns from Park Street, Beak Lane, Cow Lane, St David's Lane. All the areas are narrow with cars parked on them all. Safety issues and highway issues is a big concern here. The entrance from St David's Lane to St David's House is partly owned by Mr and Mrs Roberts, who live at St David's House, and they have not given permission for it to be used. The other half of the entrance is common land. On Mrs Roberts' side of the house, there are 4 trees, and these trees have TPOs on them, tree preservation orders. But I haven't seen anywhere that if this route does go ahead, then those trees will have to be, the road will go past these trees, and there's no guarantee that the roots of these trees will not be damaged. We go along the path then towards Goblin Farm and Ystrad Road. This major road here is used by lorries, tractors, heavy goods vehicles, bends, hump bridge, and everything. And this again is a major safety hazard. Then we go along the peripheral cemetery, as Mr Ringer has mentioned. Is it right that this form of activity should go along the perimeter of the cemetery? The fencing, it's a corridor of steel, it's narrow, and the whole fencing is another issue. Then you go to Wins Park, past the back of Middleton Park and Pryd Castell, and you come out to a dead end. If the cyclists want to go back onto the A525, they've got to go through the Brookhouse, little hamlets of Brookhouse, which is very narrow, very bendy, very dangerous, and that again is another issue. But the land, at this moment in time, again, is probably not a material issue, but the land further on than the Wins Park is privately owned by 3 people, and they are adamant that they will not sell. I feel that this whole proposal should go back to the drawing board and rethink, and they should go along the 525 along the Denby bypass. Many people walk along the Denby bypass now, and they're always asking for a path to go along the bypass. Madam Chair, if I can come back at the end, I will be proposing a refusal on this application with reasons.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Paul Penlington, please. Oh, I beg your pardon. I didn't see your hand. I'm sorry. I realised that, but I didn't see your hand up. Councillor Richard Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
First of all, I'd like to thank the officers, Paul Mead, Paul Griffin, Mike Parker and Mike Jones, along with Councillors Ara Roberts, Mervyn Parry, Gwyneth Kensler, Ray Bartley and Town Councillor Margaret Bowe for their company in last week's site visit, where many of my concerns were answered. My first question was, is the planning application for a single cycle track to get from A to B as quick as possible? Or is it a cycle and leisure track so that families, cyclists, walkers, wheelchair users and anyone else can stroll along at a leisurely pace? Do we need a cycle track in Denby? Of course we do. We are probably the only area or town anywhere in Denbighshire that has not got a cycle or leisure track. I have spoken to many residents living at both ends of Lower Park, not just the Brookhouse end, and up at Denby, and many are in total support of such a project, as well as the objectors. The objectors are predominantly and understandably residents from
Creedicaster, Marcellus Court, Hillary Close at one end, and residents of St David's Lane at the other end. The proposed route is from the junction of St David's Lane, running off Cow Lane to Brookhouse Road, encircling the recreation high school fields, crossing Mustard Road, along the edge of the cemetery, joining the Maintainers Road at the rear of the cemetery, out along the edge of the old railway line to Brookhouse Road. Quite a mouthful there. It was made clear that where anything outside of these boundaries where the application is, outside of the was not in the planning application. Anywhere outside is not in the planning application. Land ownership is a civil matter and it would be up to the developers to challenge. The pathway from St David's Lane to the high school fields, for as long as I can remember, has been a public right of way. And by the way, I'm 60 plus. Even though there is some controversy to the ownership at the entrance of the new pathway. If we were to start at St David's Lane next to the church, there is already, and has been for many years, a tarmac footpath leading down to Goblin Farm fields. We were informed that this initial pathway to the fields doesn't actually need planning permission, as an upgrading of the path was possible without planning permission. However, there is some dispute over part of the land next to the old rectory at the entrance to the pathway. The new proposed route would allow Central and Upper Denby residents a length of pathway from the St David's Lane to the cemetery and onto Brookhouse, without having to use the main roads. The crossing of Mustard Road is a major concern. These exits and crossings have been an area of grave concern on safety issues from the Town Council as well as ourselves. As you can see from the papers, that an independent highway safety audit has been submitted and their recommendations have been addressed by Highways so as to alleviate the safety concerns. Safety is paramount. Therefore, it is pleasing to see that the audit was done externally, which included, obviously, visibility and safety at all proposed junctions. The next stretch of the route is the most controversial part, causing great concerns to the residents of Creedicaster, Hillary Close and Marcellus Court. Some of the houses of part of Creedicaster are separated from the fence of the cemetery by a small strip of DCC land. This part of Creedicaster have endured a fence of sorts for many years, so the visual impact should be roughly the same for them. The last section of the route leaves the cemetery and then proceeds along the edge of the show field and the land owned by DCC, the old railway line. The majority of the objections, understandably, are from the three named Creedicaster, Hillary Close and Marcellus Court. One objection was received from our A.M. Alan Jones. Having done a small survey myself across much of Lower Denby and Upper Denby areas, by asking a few simple questions, it soon became apparent that the further away from the said areas, the less objection, which is quite understandable. Throughout the process, I have only received personally 7 household objections either verbally or written on one end of the project, and a further 6 objections from the other end. I actually had 3 households of Creedicaster in support of the project, with conditions, just like the applicants. Many residents of Denby have stated that it would be great to have a traffic-free area to walk with their children or grandchildren. There is an objection for the fear of an increase in crime and antisocial behaviour, which is likely to be starting. I ask, where is the evidence to support this statement? Much of the area is open land, which has easy access to the gardens of the residents as of now. Wouldn't a fence or hedgerow separating these gardens from the open field increase the security at the rear of these gardens or not? Another objection, showing disrespect for the families who have loved ones buried in the cemetery. Does that mean if I supported this application, I would be showing disrespect to both my parents who are lying there? I beg to challenge them. I am sure that they would love to know, my parents, that their 2 great-grandchildren can cycle close by. As far as encircling the cemetery, I suppose it's up to you and your beliefs. If defeated, do we as planners have a strong enough case to answer where there's been an appeal? Finally, I have been reminded many times that I was elected to represent the majority of my constituents and not the minority. So I leave it there.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Campbell, do you wish to say anything on this? You're waiting. Thank you. Councillor Penlington, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm only speaking as a Prestatyn member and a resident of Prestatyn, as it's been mentioned a couple of times. The Prestatyn to Disney Walkway, as it's commonly known, actually runs across the back end of my garden. As far as I'm aware, there's never been any antisocial behaviour on that track from one end to the other end. There may have been the odd occasion, which I'm not aware of, but it's certainly not an area of antisocial behaviour, I can guarantee that. The only issue we've had is with dog fouling and public protection are now escalating their work in that area, and that's reduced. The cycle path in Prestatyn is an asset, it's a lovely part of town. Children from babies up to pensioners, everybody uses it. And I will probably be supporting this application.
Thank you very much. Councillor Derry-Owen, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, we're all for cycling, and I understand this is a very good application in some ways. But at this stage in life, and with the restrictions that we have on finance, I have to query with respect of the Welsh Government, is this adding to the Welsh Government's proposal for cycleway from the coast up to the Vale of Clwyd? I don't think it does. And on this stage, I feel that this is a stage that will be done in time, but not at this stage. We need first to get these cyclists coming up the Vale so they can see what they need, what is needed, and that the cycling routes for Denby and other places will come later as an addition. But to waste this sort of money now on this sort of, I feel, is wrong. And I do feel that this bypass, we should be concentrating as Sustrans on a route from Brill along the, probably in Denbighshire, along the bypass and on to Llanrhaeadr, so we do get people up to Ruthin and beyond, and as far as Cynwyd if we can. But this is, and I do feel that I would be voting against this. Thank you.
Councillor Julian Thompson-Hill, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Clearly, this is one of those issues where there's pluses and minuses, and the community, depending on where they happen to live, are split. So you're never going to find something that's going to appeal to everybody. Personally, I have to say I do believe that this perhaps is not the right route for the cycle path, although I do support the cycle path actually going in. I tend to concur with Councillor Bartley that the A525 bypass route would actually be a better solution, but we have to deal with what's before us as a planning application and take it on its merits. I have to say I do have sympathy with those residents who have spoken and written in objection to this particular proposal. I probably would feel exactly the same with this, adjacent to myself. Councillor Davis said that the land ownership issues aren't a civil matter and not a planning issue, and I quite agree with that. And under normal circumstances, I probably would concur with that statement. However, as Denbighshire County Council actually is the applicant, I think it probably would be behoving upon us as an authority in a wider sense, rather than just speaking as a planning authority, that as a matter of good asset management, if there are issues with regards to the route and potential ownership, that again, that would mitigate in favour of an alternative route where we actually own all the land, and therefore there would be no land ownership issues that would potentially delay the scheme in any event. Having said all that, I must admit I'm struggling through a ground through refusal. But I know Councillor Bartley is going to come back on that, so I'll wait for that before making my final decision. But as it stands at the moment, I would be tending to vote against it.
I have two further speakers at the moment, three now, but I'm going to ask the officers to come in first before we go any further. Did you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I think just before we get too many queries, myself and Mike might have an opportunity to answer a few things before questions are raised on certain things. Going through some of the points that have been raised there, I think just as an overarching issue, I think it is important for members to stick to material planning considerations. When you're dealing with any planning application, you have to make a decision based on your adopted planning policies and any other material planning considerations. Issues of land ownership are not material planning considerations, and as Councillor Julian Thompson-Hill raised there, that's something that we would have to disregard in relation to this. We'd also have to disregard potential alternative routes, because that's not what's before you today. What's before you is a proposed route that you've got there, it's been consulted on. There's a lot of information in the report and on the blue sheets and on the yellow sheet around that particular route. That's what we're having to assess. That's what you're going to make the decision on. I'll bring Mike in a second just to answer some of the technical questions about the highway safety issues. What are material planning considerations, though? Because I think members need to know what it is we're going to assess and what we're going to be looking at by way of material planning considerations. Well, highway safety clearly is a material planning consideration. If members feel as though there's some concern around this particular route in terms of highway safety for vehicles, for pedestrians, for cyclists, for any of the users, again, we need to have evidence of what that highway safety issue is. From members, and Mike will be able to answer some questions on that. The other thing that's been raised so far this morning is an issue around fear of crime or antisocial behaviour. Again, we need to have some form of evidence to defend the decision that this particular route and the users of this route would increase the risk and the fear of crime. But they are material planning considerations. You can make a decision on those two issues, just asking you to be careful and consider those points before you make that decision. I'll bring Mike in now to just answer a few points on the highway safety factor.
Thank you. Whenever highway safety is discussed, there's always a certain subjectivity to it. What one person considers to be dangerous, another person wouldn't. So for that reason, as professional officers, we have to deal with fact wherever possible. So let's present some facts for this case. Average speeds: Park Street, 20 miles an hour. Estrad Road, 24 miles per hour. Brookhouse Road, 19 miles per hour. Two-way daily flows of traffic: 460 vehicles on Park Street. Estrad Road, 585 vehicles. Brookhouse Road, 500 vehicles. These are all lightly trafficked routes. In comparison, an A road going into Real, you'd expect more like 8,000 to 10,000 vehicles a day, to try and give you a bit of comparison. Based on these speeds and the proposed geometry, all new junctions have been checked and they all comply with the relevant visibility criteria as set out in Table B of 1018. The new designs have been subject to an independent road safety audit, as we've already heard. That has found no issues with these junctions. There's been some minor issues with aspects of the route, but that is what you would expect on any highway scheme. There's actually a condition attached to this that the full detailed design would have to be considered and approved by the planning authority, subject to implementation on site. Again, that's normal practice for any scheme of this nature. There's been some issues mentioned about width. The bulk of the route would be 3 metres wide, but there are some sections where it'll be below this. I refer you to the Department for Transport publication, Local Transport Note 1/12. This is the same guidance that does suggest, and it's guidance that 3 metre in most cases is the minimum recommended for an multi-user active travel route. However, the very same guidance says, and I quote here, a narrower route might offer considerable improvements over existing conditions. The existing conditions in this case
in terms of a cycle route between Denby and Ruthin are several miles of on-road routes, albeit on fairly quiet country lane, but lane that is subject to 60 miles per hour speed limit. In terms of the start and finish of the route, at the moment people say, well, where's it going to go to and from? The thing we need to consider is every route has to start somewhere. And that even the route as presented still provides an excellent recreational facility for local people of Denby, for both recreation and for shorter commuter journeys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, we've got Councillor Bill Cowie next, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. As a non-resident of Denby, I took time out last Saturday morning, spent an hour and a half going around the proposed route. So I'm not speaking just from what I've seen on paper. But my question is, what form did the consultation take place as far as road safety is concerned? Did the planning department consult with the police, for instance? And if so, I haven't seen any report in this report from the police, and I'd just like an answer to that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. As a standard, again, for any application of this type, at this stage, it's a stage 1 and 2 road safety audit, which has been carried out subsequent to the design. There will be a stage 3 audit would be carried out again for any scheme of this nature once it's actually constructed on site, and the police attend those audits as usually as a matter of course.
Okay. Councillor Hugh Hilditch-Roberts, please.
Thank you, Chair. May I also I took some time out yesterday to walk the route as well, which is of interest. And if I may, just on the consultation first, the maps you've given us, I'm struggling to see where I find Townsend and Pentreth and Ryder on there. Because it doesn't appear to be on this map that obviously was used in the consultation, which is of interest, considering that it was meant to start from Townsend to Pentreth and Ryder. I also note from the application that there is no school route or safer route to schools involved in the application, which is of interest, considering here in Ruthin we're actually looking at building schools on the cycle track and on the safe school to route, which should be given consideration. But yesterday, the road safety issue quite clearly hit me as I stood outside the farm at Ystrad, looking at the corner towards the old Bronduffin school and left back towards Denby High School, where a car came at a rate of knots, one way which I didn't see until late, and also a wagon came, because what I can see is boy races heaven, the brow of the hill, it is ideal to jump and take it as they do in these days. And that's not the road there, that's Brookhouse, isn't it? The road that I'm talking about, there isn't any pictures on, because it's a brow of the hill. We really should have that picture. Where? That's it. That's the brow of the hill. Yeah, that's this side. Right. Yeah, we need to take it from the other side of the corner, because that's where the danger there as well. And I think that is really, really interesting, because what we have to live with, however we vote on this, if you pick yourself a child crossing a road on a bike and falls off, it is not secure. If there was a tunnel underneath on the bridge of the road, I think it would be a far safer option. And I'm all pro cycling. I've got a bike, but it really is. Doesn't seem to me a really fair option on the top brow of the hill, on that corner. If a child falls off, we have to live with that, which way we vote with this, and I think that's really important. I also know that the town council is against this. On 3 votes, I understand, has voted against it on three times in this consultation process. But I also know the majority of objections are from Denby people, and the majority of the majority of 4 are from Denby people, and the objections are from away, Neston, Gwynedd. Local people know their area, and sometimes we have to listen to what they say. I urge you, on the ground of safety, that this route go back to the drawing board in support of Councillor Ray Bartley and get something safe for the children and the people of Denby.
Would you like to come in, Hugh?
Diolch yn fawr, siarad yn Gymraeg os mae'n gyfleus. Fi ddim ar cynllunio, fi wedi bod, rheswm bod fi siarad heddiw, bod fi o dan Hamdden, Reset Crawl Hamdden yn Sir Denbych. Rhaid i wneud siŵr bod fi'n siarad ar y cynllun ei hun. Mae hwnna'n bwysig, mae'n y ddau o'r cynghorwyr wedi steilio ffwrdd o'r beth, ond hynny gymryd o fel mae'n dod. Y cwestiwn fwyaf, mae'r rhaid fwyaf o'r objection wedi cael ei ymateb, efo ar un, sori mae'r tudalen enwedd ddim arno fi, ond fi wedi printio ffwrdd, 1.166 in Penrhyn Safety, mae wedi cael ei wneud. Hefyd, fel mae Paul Hellington wedi sôn, efo, os ydych chi'n cael ryw tir, mae'n dweud reit ar diwedd 4.2.4 reit ar y llinell ola. Os mae'n dweud mae'n noted at an area is already in use and a member of the public. Mae'n dweud os mae mwy o bobl yn defnyddio lle, bydd lai o bethau'n digwydd yn y lle fel anti-social behaviour. Ond y cwestiwn mi eisiau gofyn deud gwir ar un ydy 1.1.8. Mae'n dweud bod yna CTG, Community Travel Group, a mae wedi cael ei consultation, mae'n dweud all Denby councillors. Ydy'n meddwl councillors Sir Denbych neu Dre Denbych, a hefyd mae'n sôn am Llanrhaeadr a officers i gyd. Pa mae hwn, oedd e'n ei ymateb yn ôl gen y nhw i ddod yn ôl be o'n nhw wedi deud yn diwedd, cos mae nhw wedi delu cychwyn ers 2012, a siŵr mae gen nhw ryw ymateb i ddod, cos mae'n deud mae'n deud cynghorwyr o Denbych ar y grŵp yma, a be oedd o'n ymateb i nhw, ac o'n nhw roed input i fewn i'r peth. Diolch.
Okay, as he refers to county councillors, and the group is in fact a steering group that was charged basically with developing the route. I've not been party to any particular response from the group, but obviously the group was in support of it in terms of its development.
Thank you. Councillor Gemma Jones, please.
Thank you, Chair. My question is about lighting. I would imagine in certain parts there is going to be lighting along the route. I know in the cycle route that was placed at the back of Brincunning Road, the main issue there was the lighting because it disrupted the nearby residents' sleep at night. They didn't all have blackout curtains, as was once suggested. Could I ask what sort of lighting is going in there? I can't see it clearly enough on the actual plans. I know that some parts of the route are already lit, but there will be in the smaller areas lighting. I really think that that should be a big consideration of this because it wasn't something that was anticipated when they did the Gypsy Lane one on Brincunning Road. Thank you.
Councillor Arrow Roberts, please.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Madam Cadeirydd. Mi fues I ar y daith digon diddorol o gwmpas Denbych, ac chydig o bethau oedd yn codi I fy meddwl I felly. Y fynwent I ddechrau. Mae hwnna'n le sanctaidd wedi cyfan, a da chi eisiau gyrru llwybr beic drwyddo fo. Dwi'n gwybod ar y ffiniau, ie. Un peth sy'n poeni fi, os bydd 'na gnebrwn yno, a fyddwch chi yn gofalu na fydd rhywun yn teithio ar y llwybr beics pan fydd 'na gnebrwn. Dydw ddim eisiau cael pobl yn mynd trwy'r fynwent tra mae 'na gnebrwn yn digwydd. Mae yn ôl bod tebyg, mae'r llwybrau yma yn lefydd sydd mewn bodolaeth yn barod lot ohonyn nhw. A mae teuluoedd ifanc yn hoffi mynd ar hyd y llwybrau yma I gael gweld byd natur a cael awyr iach am na cwn am dro ac yn y blaen. Tybed ydych chi wedi edrych I mewn, ydyn nhw yn mynd I gael ei effeithio pan mynd ar beics yn dod lawr y llwybrau yma, ac efallai bydd na ddamweiniau nid yn unig ar y ffyrdd, ond ar llwybrau. Mae yna beryglon mawr, dwi'n meddwl, yn ffordd ystrad. Ie, fedrwch chi daflu gwybodaeth i ni am cyflymdra ac yn y blaen, cyflymdra y ceir ac yn y blaen, a faint o geir sy'n mynd lawr yna. Ond mae'r ffyrdd yn ffyrdd sydd wedi bod yna ers blynyddoedd. A maen nhw'n ffyrdd peryglus. Dwi wedi teithio yn caron nhw mwy nag unwaith, ac efo mynd i'r ochr. Felly mae yna beryglon yn ffordd ystrad a ffordd tîd wcws yn anffodus. A dwi mewn sefyllfa digon anodd. Dwi dros marchogaeth beics yn sicr. Ond dwi yn ame fydda i yn mynd efo'r cynghorydd Raymond Bartley efo hyn. Diolch.
Officers, do you wish to come back on anything there?
Yeah. First of all, in answer to Councillor Chamberlain-Jones's question, there is no lighting proposed as part of the proposal. Okay. Councillor Roberts' concerns. Firstly, I mean, there are no special arrangements that would be in place should a funeral but service be taking place, but it would be expected for anything like that, that users of the route would exercise appropriate discretion. We have to. The bottom line is we have to accept people are reasonable, and there's nothing to suggest that users of cycle routes or pedestrians are going to act any differently to any other member of the public. With regard to road safety, I come back to what I said earlier, we have to base these decisions on fact and whether they meet design standards. We searched our accident database on the routes. For Estrad Road and for Brookhouse Road, in the vicinities of where these junctions are proposed, there have been no accidents since 1981, which is when our records began. I keep hearing things like it's a dangerous route. We have to base this on fact. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've had a pretty good debate there. I'm going to ask Councillor Kensal if she wants to come in now, and then I'm going back to Councillor Bartley.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Ie, fel ydych chi'n gwybod, fel mae pob cynghorydd yn gwybod, fedrwch chi ddim plesio pawb. A dwi yn cynrychioli y ward canol, lle mae yna lot o pryderon. Ond dwi wedi derbyn llythyrau gan trigolion yn byw yn fy ward o blaid, a hefyd, wrth gwrs, rhai yn erbyn. Ac felly fyddai ddim yn plesio pawb, ond mi fyddai yn trio gwneud y peth cywir. Da ni wedi bod yn trio ers blynyddoedd, bron i 20 mlynedd rwan, yn Denbigh, i gael llwybr beicio. Ac mae hwn yn dod o'r llywodraeth, ac fel mae'r siaradwr o blaid wedi deud, mae hwn yn rhan o polisi cadw'n iach. Dwi wedi poeni braidd am glywed y pwyslais ar crime and disorder and antisocial behaviour. Beth sydd yn wneud i beicwyr cael enw mor ddrwg â hynny? A rhaid i ni gofio, mae bobl yn gallu mynd i'r mynwent beth bynnag rwan. Does na ddim byd yn erbyn nhw chwarae pêl-droed yma, y bobl ifanc, fel enghraifft. Ond mae'r bobl, y beicwyr dwi'n adnabod i gyd yn gyfrifol. Ac yn enwedig os ydyn nhw'n rhieni isio mynd allan efo'u plant. O'n i'n pasio tŷ teras echdwy, Post Office Lane. A dyna lle oedd na blant a beiciau bach tu allan i'w drysau, mae'n hanner tymor. Lle fedrwn nhw fynd ar hyn o bryd? Felly, a'r peth arall, ar y safle, pan o'n i'n mynd rownd efo Mike Parker o'r adran Priffyrdd, nes i wrando yn astud ar beth oedd o'n dweud, ac petai ni gwrthod hwn ar oherwydd pryderon i wneud â diogelwch, byddi hwnna ddim yn dal dŵr. Nhw di'r bobl proffesiynol, ac fel mae'r adroddiad yn dweud ar 4.2.7, an independent road safety audit has been commissioned. Wel, os da ni ddim yn licio be maen nhw'n deud, iawn, ond dyna be mae'r bobl proffesiynol ac annibynnol yn deud, bod does na ddim achos pryder ynglyn â diogelwch ar hwn. Ddim yn neis i rhai bobl, mae o wrach yn cael rhyw fath o effaith, ond mae'n rhaid i ni dechrau rhywle yn Ninbych. Mae'n hen bryd i teuluoedd cael rhywle i fynd ar beic efo i plant nhw.
Now I have two more members who've indicated they wish to speak, so I'm not taking any more after this one. Thank you. So, Councillor Mary Davies, please.
Diolch yn fawr, Madam Cadeirydd. Da ni clywed heddiw bore bod na ddim ymgynghoriad i bod ar un rhan o'r daith feic yma. Tybed sa chi'n hoffi deud beth i y problem efo hynny, os ydy hynny'n gwneud y cais yn wel, ddylen ni mo'i drafod felly, nes bod neu drafodaeth wedi bod efo y rhan hwnnw. Oedd i ystyried hefyd i ffordd ystod roi twnnel, Cefi a Bont ys dalwm, oedd y tren yn mynd o danodd. Os na fi, pam? Os ydyn ni di ystyried, pan nad os na fi, ydy'r gost normod neu be. A di'r ffyrdd ydyn ni'n cyfeirio atyn heddiw bore hefyd, yn ffyrdd agored i'r cyhoedd, i farchogaeth beic, neu gerdded arnynt. A ddirfynwent yma, pan oedd y tren yn teithio o Ddinbych i Rhuthun. Neu ydy'n y fynwent newydd ers hynny. Ac hefyd, a ni wedi sôn am bod wedi pynyrru ar ffordd ystrad, a ni wedi teithio ffordd na fynd i Saron ac yn y blaen. Ys posib oedd llai o gyflymder o 60 i lawr bydwch i 40 neu 30 neu beth bynnag. Os o posib gwneud hynny i arbed nhw yr ei gormod. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes, please.
Diolch yn fawr. Sorry, this has been a long time coming, hasn't it? We've been at it for an hour. To be honest, I find it, I live in Llangollen, and it's quite sad really to come to applications like this really where you've got a town that's quite obviously split. And when you live the other side of the county, it's not very, you've got to stand back and look at it. And we've been sent loads of things by email. Numbers of us have been phoned up and on both sides, which is fair enough. So I've got a couple of questions, because I think most of the debate's been had. This independent safety report, have we seen it? So that's one question. I suppose we have, and I missed it somewhere along the line. The other one is, I visited that picture there. The only times I've ever been there were on taking the boys to wear games. And I tell you what, when we're all parked up that bridge, over that bridge, and over the other side of that Goblin Farm, you wouldn't want to. I've always thought there's an accident waiting to happen. I know that doesn't happen very often, but they do have events in the school, and the cars are parked up that road. Now, I might have my geography wrong here. I probably got it wrong. Top end of that road, where does it come out? Can anybody from Denbighshire tell me? No, the very top of it. Where does it come out? Right at the very top? Right. Okay. Just so I know where I am. The other thing is, if this committee happens to go against this today, I would like to know before the vote, this is an awkward question I suppose, will the officers be going to appeal? So I think we need to know that.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll pick up on Councillor Lloyd Davis's questions first. Firstly, with regards to the consultation, there was a consultation exercise undertaken in 2012 which presented 4 routes, I believe, quite a sort of small scale plan. The 80% of the respondents, so that was something like 700 respondents, 7,000 that went out, basically chose in favour of traffic-free routes. And the traffic-free route, as was presented in that consultation, differs over a length of approximately 200-300 metres in terms of the fact that instead of going through the high school fields, as was in that consultation, it instead takes the route down the access road to beyond Rectory, St David's House, and along the back of the Middle Park fields. Now, at that stage, we were consulting on that proposal. We obviously had negotiations with the school, which we exhausted, and it meant we had to choose a different route. What we need to look at is the principle. What people were choosing, in our opinion, was a traffic-free route, as opposed to a route on existing roads or a route alongside the A525. Because I've had many people say to me, if they're looking to take their children out, novice cyclists or people who haven't cycled for years, do they want to be cycling alongside a 60-mile-an-hour road or bypass, or cycling along traffic-free routes, which are quieter, much more attractive? With regard to, did we consider a tunnel? A tunnel, one, is a lot more expensive. They're not inviting places. They tend to be dark and damp, even if only a relatively short length. And really, it's the kind of feature that the general consensus and design guidance across the UK is to avoid subways and so on. And certainly where you do see subways, they're passing under busy multi-lane city streets, not under a quiet road which carries 500 vehicles, 600 vehicles a day. With regard to the date of the cemetery, I personally couldn't tell you which came first, the cemetery or the railway, but I would be pretty sure that they were there at the same time, given the dates on some of the graves. With regard to Westwood Road and speeds, within the proposal, it shows a relocation of the existing 30-mile-an-hour limit, whereas currently on the brow of the hill beyond Railway Bridge, to a location round the bend past Goblin Farm, just on the sort of straight that goes past the front of the cemetery. I believe also there would be merit in actually moving that further along that road and actually to encompass the cemetery entrance as well. But again, that's really finer detail. In regard to Councillor Hughes's questions, independent road safety audit, I believe, is included in these documents as part of the plan materials. With regard to would we choose to appeal, you have to remember, as a local authority, since the Active Wales Travel Act came in, we have a duty to expand and improve our cycle network. And there's a very clear missing link in central Denbighshire. We have a very well-developed route in the north of St Asaph. We have routes, as you know, in the Dee Valley now, but there's very little. There's a bit that we've done in recent years in Ritten, but there's a glaring gap, in my opinion, in the Denbigh area. So we would certainly be considering all options open to us in regards to obligations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No further. I think we've had an hour at this.
Just one last point.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
There's also a point that Councillor Helmut Roberts raised earlier, which was with regard to the title on the drawings as Townsend to Pentrith Land Rider. That is basically the overall route that this forms part of, but the application is as what is indicated on the plan. Okay.
Thank you. We have an officer recommendation to grant this application. Do I have anyone who is willing to propose that? Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Tom.
Just to see that reference is made by Mike now about the various routes. Let's remember that the A525, there are routes from Wirral to St Adolf, there are routes from Merrill to Ritten, all on the major roads. The quoted speed limits yeah, it's 20, 18, 16, 19, whatever, I get to see a car not exceeding that speed limit on those roads that is mentioned. And therefore, Madam Chairman, I'd like to propose a refusal for this application on general highway issues, safety for all, narrow roads, visibility, especially around the start of the proposed track, Ustrud Bridge and the Brookhouse area. Privacy, activity very near neighbouring properties, and noise, environmental issues due to increased activity.
Thank you. Do we have a second to that proposal? Councillor Cowan. Right, I'll hand over to you now.
So,
For your reasons.
yeah, no, so we've got one proposal in front of us, which is to refuse on the grounds that Councillor Bartley has put forward, which are reasonable planning grounds. So, obviously the officer recommendation is to grant, but what I can say is that the reasons for refusal are being put forward are reasonable planning grounds and are focused on the material planning considerations. I think we've had 13 members have spoken, asked questions and made statements. I think the debate's been going on for over an hour. So I think you've had a good debate and you've understood clearly what the key issues are. In the end, you're here acting as the local planning authority. You're judging the merits of a planning application. So I appreciate as county councillors you'll have a view, but actually you're here as the planning authority. So you have to take a planning view and you need to come to your own conclusions on those planning merits. And what I can say is the debate has focused on predominantly on the planning issues, the material planning merits, the questions and the issues have been well raised and hopefully you've had the answers. And it's now time to come to the vote. So you've got the decision to make as members of the committee. Okay, thank you, Chair. I think we are now ready to go to the vote. When the board is cleared, obviously you will be pressing plus to grant, which would be in accordance with the officer recommendation, and you will be pressing minus to refuse, as ever. So if we clear the board, please, and all vote now. Thank you.
Thank you, members. We have 9 in favour of that application and 14 against, with a total of 23 votes being cast. Therefore, the application is refused.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to just say that I have grave concerns as a project like this has been taking a lot of time with officers, etc., in this time of austerity and the amount of cuts that we're making in the budgets that we have. And I just wonder how this has had the priority that it has, and whether this could be convened to our higher officers to look into this in the future. Thank you.
All I can say on that is obviously that's not a planning issue. If you want to raise that elsewhere through scrutiny or whatever, then there's obviously other routes to do so.
I see no reason that we from planning here could put this forward, though.
Councillor Campbell.
I have to refute that. And if we're in a period of austerity, we must ask why we're in a period of austerity. And safe routes and health are still issues of importance, whether it's time of austerity or not.
I think the general consensus is that everybody wants to plan it. So could we please come back at 5 to 11?